Alrighty, so I'm back with the AL West, and overall, this is a pretty good division this year. I mean, they got three, depending on how the Angels are, you have three like decent teams. I don't know how I feel about that statement, honestly, actually. But anyways, they've got a really good first team. In first place I have the Astros, second place I have the Athletics, third Angels, fourth Mariners, fifth Rangers. So first place, I mean the Astros are really good this year. Just looking at their team, kind of refreshing myself on my research I did on them. I mean they really look good. To be honest, it's gonna hurt they don't have Verlander. But besides for that, I mean this is a really solid team. I mean you still got your core. They did lose. They lost Springer, which that hurts a lot. It really does. And you replace them with Miles Straw, so that's the one thing that really hurts them. But besides for that, you have the same core of Altuve, Brantley, Bregman, Correa, Yordan Alvarez, Maldonado. He's not really, but Kyle Tucker. Still have that really good core of those players, and then we're going to see some of those really good prospects coming up. I don't know when we're going to see Forrest Whitley. Still waiting on that. But and then they got like Abraham Toro, who I like, Miles McCormick, I believe his name is, or Chaz McCormick. So they have some good prospects too. So overall, still really good lineup. And we saw that in the playoffs. I mean, they really a solid lineup that can score a lot of runs. And then their rotation is still great. I mean, they're not gonna have Verlander, but they still got McCullers, Javier, who I think is awesome, Rookie of the Year candidate. Urquidy is good. Greinke's still decent. Framber Valdez, absolute beast. I mean, he's going to be injured to start the year. They got Brandon Bielak, who had a couple of good starts last year. So overall, like a good group. I mean, it's really deep. I mean, you've probably got Odorizzi or Urquidy as their fifth starter. Don't really have like a juggernaut number one. I guess it's like Valdez, maybe Greinke or McCullers, or Javier, but it's still, I mean, it's just it's a good group of starters. And then you still got the great bullpen they got Ryan Stanek, which I really liked. They got, who else did they get? They got Pedro Baez, I believe, and one more pretty good guy to add to their bullpen. And then they still have Presley. They still kind of need a lefty out of the bullpen. I don't like Brooks Braley as their only lefty. But still, I mean, a pretty good rotation, bullpen, and all-around team. Are they World Series caliber? Probably not, but they'll compete for sure. And they're definitely better than the A's, which is why I took them ahead of the A's. So going into the A's, the main reason I couldn't take them to win this division, one was because they lost Hendricks, such a big part of their bullpen, and that's just a detrimental loss for them. No doubt about it. Just losing him for the bullpen, that really hurts. They lost, and they traded away Chris Davis, who I thought could have produced for them offensively. But the biggest loss, of course, is Marcus Semien. I mean, he produced so much for them. Offensively, I mean, him and Chapman were basically, and Olsen were like the big producers of that lineup. And losing Davis and Semien, I mean, that's a huge part of your offense. And Liam Hendricks, I mean, that really hurts. Looking at their lineup, I mean, it's still pretty good. You're getting Matt Chapman back, who's awesome. You still got Matt Olson, Canna, Pinders was awesome in the playoffs. Laureano's good. We'll see how Elvis Andrews steps in. I really liked adding Mitch Moreland and Jed Lowry. Jed Lowry was great for them 2 years ago. He's healthy now. I think he'll produce for them. And Moreland. And then, of course, Sean Murphy, the power hitting catcher. But I think Moreland is a classic A's player. I mean, I think he's old veteran, but he hits really well. He's going to produce for them. So overall, they have a pretty good lineup. And they did a good job plugging in for missing Davis and Andrews. But the main reason why If their rotation was better, I think I'd probably have them over the Astros, but their rotation still is really questionable. I mean, you have Lazardo, who's like, he's probably a number one starter. I don't know, but he wasn't good in the playoffs. He's got to work on locating his fastball better. Montas is great, but I think he wasn't great at the end of the year or something. He didn't really pitch in the playoffs. Puck is good. He's a high prospect, so he's kind of got to prove himself. Bassett was probably their best. I believe he was their best starter last year. He was good in the playoffs, pretty good in the regular season. So I like Chris Bassett. Manea, absolute disaster in the playoffs. But maybe he can produce. I don't know if they brought in another starter besides that, but would have liked to seen a little more, because on my depth chart I have Dalton Jeffries as their sixth starter. I don't know who the hell that is. So would have liked to seen a little more starting pitching depth for them, getting a veteran or something like that. But, the rotation is really questionable, and it's not like a usual A's team. The usual A's team has a pretty strong rotation that I really like, and I don't like it at all this year. Then going to their bullpen, they still got your core Petit, Diekman, Trevino. Hopefully you can turn it around. They got Trevor Rosenthal to be the closer, which is, a good substitute for Hendricks. He's nowhere near as good as Hendricks, but it's a good substitute, and I think he'll do fine as their closer. They also have, can I remember any more? Maybe they still have Joakim Soria, but that's a guess. Don't hold me to it. So still a pretty good bullpen, and the A's always have a great bullpen. And they'll definitely figure things out bullpen-wise. So they're a second-place team, but not a strong one, which is why I retract my statement that this division has three solid good teams. And we can move into our third-place team, which is the Angels. Angels still really need to figure out how to win. I said this last year on the podcast, and I think what I said turned out completely right. You have Mike Trout, who is the greatest player on earth, arguably could have been the greatest player on earth, or could be the greatest player ever to have lived. And they still don't understand that you need three good starting pitchers to win, three elite starting pitchers to win a World Series, and a good bullpen. They have the lineup down. They have a good lineup right now. You have David Fletcher, you got Ohtani, who hopefully will produce, Upton, Rendon, Jared Walsh, I like to step in. I like they got Dexter Fowler. I like they got Iglesias. Stasi's okay at catcher. They have a good lineup. Did I mention Rendon or not? They have a good lineup. But you have to figure out the starting pitching. Please. I don't know. It should have been number one priority that you get Trevor Bauer this offseason. I don't care how much you have to pay. You get this man to Los Angeles. If you overpay for him, you overpay for him. But you have to get at least one, top tier starter. When Ohtani's healthy, you probably have one. Then you get Bauer, that's two. Then you trade for Blake Snell. That's three elite starters that you could potentially be a World Series contender with. Or get Musgrove. They just don't understand really how to build a winning team. And I know that sounds, and this is the first year for their GM. So obviously, that reflects nothing on what I just said about him. He's just coming in, and he's made some great moves to make this team competitive and, have a chance at contending this year. But I'm talking about before that. I just hope that Perry, can come in and realize, okay, we got to get three really good starters and a good bullpen and give Mike Trout a chance to win a World Series. Because that would be the most shameful thing ever if, the greatest player, possibly the greatest player of all time, never even got to play in the playoffs or an ALCS or a World Series. And I think it's it's going to be a knock on Trout going forward, and it's really disappointing that he trusts the Angels to get him a championship winning team, and they consistently fail to do it. So if I were the Angels, the first thing I would have done would be to trade Joe Adele for Snell or Clevenger or one of those guys who got knocked around. They need to realize, and I'm sorry, but they're already set with their lineup. You don't need any more offense. You need pitching. Pitching. So trade for a good starter, because right now they maybe have one elite starter, and you need 3 to win a World Series or nonetheless compete. Now, looking at their starting rotation, I've talked about, they have Ohtani, who's looked great in the spring so far, but again, he's never been consistently healthy or, he's never been consistently healthy. He gets injured a lot, always on the DL. You have Dylan Bundy, who I think was an awesome trade. I love that they got him. He was really good last season. Is he a number 2 starter? No, I don't think he's that good. Then they got Quintana, who, had a really good FIP last year, really good advanced metrics. I think he'll help out. I mean, he's a good veteran starter. He could get hot and he could get pretty good. So I like that acquisition. I do like bringing in Alex Cobb. I know I trashed on him earlier with the Orioles, but I think he could bounce back and potentially be pretty good for the Angels. So I like that acquisition. He can be really effective. And then they have, Heening and Griffin Canning, I've been waiting to be good for like 2 or 3 years at this point. Same with Heaney. He's kind of a disaster at this point. I mean, really high prospect, high regarded, and, really hasn't lived up to that. Same with Canning. Their priorities should be do better with the bullpen. They traded Robles, I believe. They might still have him. I hope they still have him. And they got someone else. I think it was I think they got Rizal Iglesias, which I liked. And they got Ty Buttrey, who I think is really good in their bullpen. So, okay bullpen, 3rd place type bullpen. But they gotta get some starters, just for the sake of Mike Trout, just to give your chance a team to win, because this team isn't good enough to make the playoffs. I really believe that. I just don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs. And number one, it's just kind of sad. Again, not to crap on their organization, but like the A's, who spend like half of what the Angels spend every year, are just consistently are better than them and just consistently beat them. And it's just kind of it's kind of sad. I don't know. So moving on to our 4th place team, we've got the Mariners, who are, their rebuild is coming in really nice. It's really impressive. You've got just young talent everywhere, both on the starting pitching side and on the lineup side. And so on the pitching side, or let's go with lineup side. So they're getting Mitch Haniger back. They've got some great young players in J.P. Crawford, Kyle Lewis, Shed Long's okay, Trammell, Evan White, Tom Murphy, just some really good young players that are just headed in the right direction. Kelenic is going to be awesome when he gets called up, and they've just got a lot of really good young guys that are at that level that you want them to be and can really take a big jump this year. And they're not going to be great this year, but they're going to compete, and all those guys are going to get better and they're going to get more at bats. And they're really going to be good. And it's really impressive that, they've traded away Austin Nola. I think they traded away someone else. Maybe Shed Long. I don't know. He might be on their bench. And they still have such good young talent. And Tom Murphy showed a lot of promise. But, so on the lineup side, great young talent. Then on the pitching side, you got Justin Dunn, who they got from the Mets, Justice Sheffield, who they got from the Yankees, Chris Flexen, who I believe is pretty young. I don't think we'll see Emerson Hancock. They have another good young starter who I can't remember his name. They brought in Paxton, who I think will do well for them, being back in the Seattle, just pitching again. I know he doesn't have his usual stuff, but I like bringing him back in. And then Marco Gonzalez, who's been a consistent kind of like just guy. I mean, I think I like having him as he's probably gonna be their number one starter, which is like, it's whatever. I like having him. And then Kukichi, who has not been a good acquisition. I think he bounced back maybe a little bit last year, but but still, a lot of young talent there. And then their bullpen, to be honest, I really don't know much about. I know they signed Ken Giles, which who I think, let me see his contract. They signed Ken Giles. But besides for that, I really don't know much about their lineup. Their bullpen. But overall, the Mariners trending in the total right direction, doing a really good job, and they'll be good in a few years for sure when the Astros fall, I believe. And it'll be the Mariners' time for sure. And that Cano trade really paid off. Moving on to our 5th place team, it's going to be a really rough year for the Texas Rangers. I remember waking up and seeing an Instagram post, that Kyle Gibson was their number 1 starter. So that's tough to swallow if you're a Rangers fan, and it kind of shows just that they're rebuilding, and they are not, they're not moving in the winning direction. They made a nice trade. They have some good young stars in Colby Allard, Dane Dunning, and I like that they traded away Lynn. They got some good assets. Could have traded Mike Minor for better assets, but they waited too long, which is too bad. In terms of their lineup, good young players. They got Nick Solak. They've got, Gallo's not young anymore, but he's a great player. I like trading for Nate Lowe. I guess he's okay. And David Dahl, good signing, got him at a cheap price. But besides for that, this is a 5th place team. Nothing really more to say besides that. It's going to be a long year for them for sure, and they'll definitely be contending for the first pick in the draft. So that's it about the AL West, and we will move on to the AL Central.